Hi guys, today Em and I are going to do a presentation on the Char Cathedral. Before we get started, we're going to go over some vocab words and concepts you should know before we start the presentation. Char Cathedral is a perfect example of Gothic architecture. Gothic buildings are all about going big and letting in tons of light. They're way taller and more open than older Roman churches. The floor plan is a cruciform plan, meaning it's shaped like a cross. Not only is it symbolic, it actually organizes the space for how people move and worship inside. The nave is the main hallway, where everyone gathers during services. It's super tall and wide, so when you walk in, your eyes just naturally go up toward the ceiling. Then there is the transept, which forms the arms of the cross and adds space for extra altars and entrances. Behind the altar, there's an ambulatory, which works as a walkway that allows pilgrims to walk around the altar without getting in the way of Mass. And coming off the ambulatory are the radiating chapels, little side chapels where people could pray or look at relics. Char was a big pilgrimage spot because it had the Virgin Mary's tunic, so these chapels were super important for letting visitors move around without messing up the service. Some important concepts to remember before we go into this presentation are the lux nova, meaning new light. The Char Cathedral is one of the first sightings filtered through stained glass windows. Sede sapiente is another important concept, meaning throne of wisdom. Sede is Latin for throne and sapiente is wisdom. The stained glass windows that we will see later shows that the Virgin Mary is the throne and Jesus is sitting on her. The 7 liberal arts are also being depicted in the stained glass windows. I'm sure we all know, but the 7 liberal arts are grammar, logic, and rhetoric, which are part of the trivium, and then arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music, which are a part of the quadrivium. Now for the form. The overall form of Char is really what makes it such an important building. It has a cruciform plan, meaning the floor looks like a giant cross, as mentioned before. The strong central part is the nave, then the transepts form the arms, and then the apse. This layout isn't just symbolic, it actually organizes how people move through space, especially pilgrims coming to see the relics. Inside, the cathedral has what we call a 3-part elevation. The walls are divided into 3 levels, the large arches at the bottom, a narrow triforium in the middle, and the clerestory at the top, which has all the tall windows. This layered system makes the walls feel structured but also draws your eyes upward, which is ironic because Gothic architects were obsessed with height. Char used ribbed vaults and pointed arches, which is good because this allowed the ceilings to be way higher than before while still supporting all the weight. The pointed arches also help spread the weight more efficiently than old rounded Romanesque arches. On the outside, there are buttresses. They're these arch supports that carry the weight of the walls and vaults outward, which frees up the interior walls to have huge stained glass windows. The combination of vaults, pointed arches, and flying buttresses creates this feeling that the building is lifting towards the sky, depicting heaven, and the light pouring in from the windows really enforces that effect. Moving on to materials and technique. The cathedral is mainly built from limestone, which was carved and shaped on site. The stone is not just for structure, but also as decoration. The piers, ribs, and columns are carefully shaped to create strength and visual rhythm. The stained glass windows are another big deal. Char has some of the most complete medieval glass surviving today. These windows aren't just decorative, they transform natural light into a kind of spiritual experience inside the building. The ribbed vaults and flying buttresses were really innovative for the time. Ribbed vaults let the builders span much larger spaces without heavy walls, and the pointed arches make the weight distribution more efficient. Flying buttresses take the outward thrust from the vaults and redirect it into external piers, which is why the walls can be filled almost entirely with glass. On the sculptural side, the stone carvings, especially the portals and jamb figures, are directly integrated into the architecture. They weren't just slapped on for decoration. The architecture and the sculpture are part of the same visual experience, guiding viewers both physically and spiritually through space. The content of Char is closely tied to its religious purpose. The cathedral is dedicated to the Virgin Mary and it houses a relic which is said to be her tunic. This relic made Char one of the most important pilgrimage sites in medieval Europe. The portals on the west facade tell big religious stories. The central royal portal shows Christ in majesty, surrounded by the symbols of evangelists. On the sides, the jammed figures shows Old Testament kings and queens, connecting biblical history to the present and showing the lineage of faith. Instead, the stained glass windows continues this storytelling. Scenes from the Bible and images of Mary as a queen of heaven covers the walls, filling the space with colored light. The content isn't just decorative, it's designed to teach, inspire devotion, and help viewers connect with the divine as they move through the cathedral. Finally, the original context. The original context helps explain why Char looks and feels the way it does. After a fire in 1194, it destroyed much of the earlier cathedral, and it was rebuilt in the High Gothic style. This period emphasized lux nova, or as we mentioned before, new light, the idea that divine light coming through stained glass could elevate the spiritual experience of anyone inside. The cathedral was a major pilgrimage destination because of Mary's tunic, as also mentioned before. The design, including the ambulatory and radiating chapels, made it easier for pilgrims to circulate and view the relic without interrupting service. Char also reflects civic pride and the growing power of the church in medieval France. It wasn't just a place to pray. It was a place for learning, community, and demonstration of faith through art and architecture. Every part of the building, from soaring vaults to glowing windows, was designed to inspire awe and bring people closer to God.
I'll be talking about the intended function and purpose. Charles Cathedral was built as a major religious center dedicated to the Virgin Mary. It served as a place for Catholic worship, mass, and pilgrimage. People from all over Europe came to see the Sancta Camisa, a relic believed to be Mary's tunic worn at the birth of Jesus. The cathedral was designed to represent heaven on earth. Its height, light, and stained glass windows were meant to bring worshippers closer to God. With colored light symbolizing his divine presence, it also showed civic pride and power, reflecting the city's wealth, unity, and devotion. Innovation and change. Char was one of the first cathedrals to perfect the Gothic style. It used rip-groin vaults and flying buttresses, which made the walls taller and thinner, allowing for massive stained glass windows that filled the space with light. It introduced the three-part Gothic elevation, the arcade, triforium, and clerestory, creating balance and harmony. The royal portal sculptures were more naturalistic and human-like than earlier Romanesque ones, showing an early move toward humanism. And for the first time, the architecture, sculpture, and stained glass all worked together to tell a unified story centered on Mary and salvation. Convention and tradition. Even with all its innovations, Char kept traditional church elements. It has a cruciform or cross-shaped floor plan representing Christ's crucifixion, and is oriented east towards the sun rising, symbolizing resurrection and hope. There's a hierarchy of decoration. The holiest spaces, like the apse and choir, are the most ornate. The portal sculptures continued the Romanesque tradition of teaching Bible stories to the illiterate, but with more emotion and realism. The cathedral also empathizes Mary as an intercessor between humans and God, showing her growing importance in medieval devotion. Themes. The main themes of Char Cathedral are faith, divine light, and the connection between heaven and earth. The stained glass represents God's presence filling the space. The cathedral symbolizes the power and unity of the church and the bond between the human and the divine, with stone representing earth and light symbolizing heaven. As a pilgrimage site, Char also represents the medieval search for salvation and spiritual renewal. Everything about it, its structure, light, and scale, was meant to inspire faith and bring people closer to God.